Driving back from my aunt's house on a quiet evening, the 45-minute journey seemed like a small sacrifice for the joy of family gatherings. I cherished those moments when I could savor my aunt's delectable home-cooked meals and revel in the warmth of familial connections. Little did I know that what started as a typical evening would take a nightmarish turn. As I hit the road, the realization struck me: the fuel gauge was ominously low. The lazy side of me decided to delay refueling until I reached a gas station near my aunt's house. A momentary lapse of memory caused me to forget about refueling entirely as I got engrossed in the family festivities. It was only when I bid my aunt farewell that the unsettling realization hit me: I had forgotten to fill up. Nevertheless, optimism prevailed as I calculated that I had about 30 miles left before the tank ran dry. A gas station was a mere 10 miles away, or so I thought. Driving my worn-out 2001 Silverado, a relic that had seen better days with its 275,000 miles, I soon realized that the fuel gauge wasn't as reliable as I had assumed. In the middle of nowhere, the truck came to a sudden halt. Panic set in as I reached for my phone, only to find no signal in this remote area. Desperation crept in, but I remembered the gas can in the truck bed. While it held no fuel, it at least gave me a semblance of hope. A 3-mile walk loomed ahead, through a dark and desolate landscape. 15 minutes into my journey, a truck pulled up behind me, my savior, or so it seemed. The driver, seemingly well-intentioned, offered me a ride to the gas station. Skepticism lingered, fueled by recent news about people going missing in seemingly safe areas. Despite my reservations, exhaustion and the allure of a quick solution led me to accept the stranger's offer. At first, the driver reassured me that he was just a good Samaritan. However, a chilling shift occurred as he began muttering incomprehensibly. Unease settled in, intensified by his refusal to acknowledge my inquiries about his well-being. The situation escalated when he bypassed the gas station without explanation. An ominous warning followed: "You don't make the rules here, I do. Shut your mouth if you want everything to be okay." Panic surged as I frantically attempted to escape, only to discover that the door had been tampered with. I was trapped, a captive in a stolen truck hurtling towards an unknown fate. Summoning courage, I reached for my pepper spray, a small but potent means of defense. In the chaos that ensued, the truck swerved wildly. My attempt to seize control became a desperate struggle for survival. Ultimately, the vehicle crashed into a ditch, colliding with a tree. Dazed and disoriented, I seized the opportunity when the assailant lay unconscious. Crawling over him, I escaped through the driver's side, clutching the gas can. Running a mile back to the gas station, fear propelled me forward. Breathless and shaken, I reported the incident to the cashier, who promptly summoned the police. In the aftermath, I cooperated with law enforcement, providing a detailed description in the hope of bringing the assailant to justice. Despite finding the stolen truck, the perpetrator remains at large. The incident serves as a haunting reminder of the importance of caution and preparedness, even in seemingly safe situations. Late one night, I embarked on my usual 30-minute drive home. The pay made the late hours worthwhile, and my routine alternated between taking the quicker highway route or winding through the town, depending on my mood. On this particular night, I opted for the highway, craving the comfort of my home after a series of exhausting overtime shifts. As I cruised along the dimly lit road, it struck me how desolate the area was at this late hour. Traffic was sparse, and the occasional headlights in the rearview mirror were typically just fellow night owls making their way home. However, this night was about to take a harrowing turn. Out of nowhere, a car zoomed past me at an alarming speed. Going at least 100 miles per hour, it caught me off guard. Unusual for the time of night, I watched as the vehicle swerved dangerously between lanes. Its speed fluctuated dramatically, accelerating only to abruptly decelerate, and the erratic behavior raised an immediate red flag. Concerned but unsure of the cause, I cautiously closed the gap between us, attempting to get a better look without being too conspicuous. As I drew nearer, the reason for the erratic driving unfolded before my eyes, and the scene that played out left me utterly stunned. The man behind the wheel wasn't just recklessly drunk, he was brutally assaulting a woman in the back seat. My heart raced as I comprehended the gravity of the situation. Without a moment's hesitation, I reached for my phone, dialed 911, and began relaying every detail about the vehicle, its occupants, and our location to the dispatcher. Despite the dispatcher's advice to avoid following the car, my determination to ensure the woman's safety propelled me forward. I maintained a careful distance, my focus on gathering information for the police. For what felt like an eternity, I observed the horrifying scene unfold before my eyes, simultaneously praying for help to arrive swiftly. After what seemed like an eternity, I heard the distant wail of sirens, a welcome sound cutting through the tension. As the police closed in, the assailant accelerated, attempting to evade capture. I quickly moved aside to allow the officers to take control, yet I stayed close enough to provide additional information. In a twist of fate, the chase reached its climax as the man veered off the highway into an open field. The car spiraled out of control, flipping multiple times before coming to a rest. The assailant, attempting to flee on foot, was swiftly apprehended by the police, who wasted no time in subduing him. The officers carefully extracted the woman from the wreckage, revealing the extent of the abuse she had endured. It was later revealed that she had been kidnapped just 35 minutes prior from a nearby bar. The assailant, intoxicated beyond reason, faced a slew of felony charges. In the aftermath, I found myself grappling with a mix of emotions: relief that the woman was now safe, anger at the perpetrator, and a lingering sense of trauma from witnessing such brutality. The incident reinforced the importance of trusting one's instincts and taking action in the face of danger. As the legal proceedings unfolded, I was notified that my testimony would be crucial in ensuring justice for the victim. Despite the challenges and the toll the experience took on my own well-being, I remained steadfast in my commitment to see the case through. In the end, I couldn't shake the feeling that by following my intuition and intervening that fateful night, I had played a pivotal role in saving a life. One evening, I became entangled in a series of bizarre events that I never could have anticipated. The sequence of events began quite innocently. I was supposed to hang out with a friend after his work shift. Being the punctual person that I am, I arrived at his workplace a good 10 minutes early. I texted him to let him know I was there, and he replied, apologizing for a delay, estimating about an hour more of work. Rather than idly waiting, I decided to kill some time by driving around, enjoying some music. As hunger kicked in, I opted for a quick bite at Burger King. This seemingly ordinary decision would set off a chain of unsettling events. While cruising through some back roads, I noticed a car tailing me closely. Initially brushing it off, I increased my speed a bit to avoid inconveniencing anyone. However, the driver behind me caught up quickly and dangerously closed the gap, forcing me to think, what the heck is wrong with people? Annoyed by this persistent tailgater, I contemplated brake-checking him, but reasoned against it. The situation became even more unnerving as he followed me for what felt like an eternity, showing no signs of relenting. My friend texted, saying he'd be out in 15 or 20 minutes, prompting me to head towards his workplace, now about 15 minutes away. Oddly, as I made several left turns, the mysterious driver stuck with me. My unease grew, especially as I pulled into a gas station near my friend's workplace. With no other cars around, it felt like a scene straight out of a thriller. As I parked, the mystery driver pulled in next to me, rolling down his window and desperately trying to get my attention. Attempting to ignore him, I failed as he exited his car, banging on my window and demanding I unlock the door. Panic set in, my phone fumbled in my pocket as I struggled to dial the police. Just as things escalated, my friend Jake emerged from the gas station, promptly assessing the situation. He confronted the stranger, who brazenly challenged him. In a shocking turn, Jake revealed he was armed, causing the aggressor to retreat to his car and speed away. To this day, I'm haunted by the question, what did that guy want? Was it a case of mistaken identity, or was he harboring more sinister intentions? Grateful for Jake's presence and quick thinking, I can't help but wonder about the countless others who might encounter such volatile individuals. It's a stark reminder of the unpredictable dangers lurking in the world, leaving me both bewildered and wary. In the winter of 2017, during my college days, an unnerving incident unfolded that left me shaken and constantly questioning the intentions of strangers. My name is Alex, and this story takes place when I was making my way home for the holidays. Living close to campus, I usually stayed with my parents to save on rent, but during the festive season, our family tradition involved a 2-hour drive to visit extended family in the neighboring state. On this particular occasion, my parents decided to depart early on a Saturday morning. However, due to a lingering class commitment, I found myself hitting the road later that evening, around 7 p.m. The journey was already cloaked in darkness, as winter evenings tend to be, and the highway I traversed was eerily desolate. The route lacked signs of civilization, making the solitude all the more pronounced. Approximately an hour into my drive, my aging car began emitting peculiar noises. Given its vintage status, I tried my best to ignore the unsettling sounds, attributing them to the occasional quirks of an old vehicle. However, my optimistic dismissal was short-lived as the car gradually slowed down, despite my efforts to accelerate. Panic set in when, to my dismay, I realized the inevitable: I had run out of gas. In hindsight, I recalled intending to fill up on my way back from school, but the chaos of exams and the impending holiday festivities had caused me to forget. Adding to the challenge, the gas light in my car was broken, leaving me with no visual cue. With no other option, I embarked on a roughly 20-minute walk to the nearest town, where I knew a 24-hour gas station awaited. Upon reaching the station and hastily procuring a gas container, I retraced my steps, eager to remedy my situation. The return journey was swift, but as I approached my car, relief gave way to a chilling realization. The headlights revealed a man standing about 50 feet in front of me, having emerged from the same direction I had walked just minutes ago. His presence was disconcerting, and as he neared my vehicle, he signaled for me to roll down my window. An instinctual fear gripped me, but with him leaning on the front hood of my car, driving away seemed perilous. I cautiously opened the window just an inch, hoping to get him to move, but he lingered, persisting in his request for a ride, claiming his car had broken down up the road. I knew this was likely a ruse. I had just traversed that stretch and seen no signs of a stranded vehicle. Politely declining, I sensed an uncomfortable silence before he mentioned feeling tired and requested water. Eager to defuse the situation, I agreed, reaching over to my glove box where I kept spare water bottles. Seizing what seemed like my only chance to escape, I hit the gas, accelerating away from the unsettling encounter. As I drove off, an ear-piercing scraping sound reverberated through the air. Glancing in my rearview mirror, I saw the man chasing my car briefly before giving up. The relief of escape, however, was short-lived. Upon arriving at my cousin's house, I discovered the entire side of my car had been scraped, resembling the damage caused by a knife or a sharp object. Alarmed and disturbed, I promptly reported the incident to the police. Despite my efforts, the outcome remained unclear, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the man had intentionally followed me from the gas station to my car. The unsettling encounter left me with a heightened awareness of personal safety and a lingering sense of vulnerability on deserted roads. About a decade ago, when I was a 21-year-old guy, I had one of those unforgettable nights that etch themselves into your memory. It was a time when life was all about rebellion and pushing boundaries, and I was out with two buddies, let's call them Mike and Chris, testing the limits of our freedom. The clock had just struck 10 in the evening when I picked up Mike and Chris in my pride and joy, a Dodge Charger that had drained every last penny from my 21-year-old wallet. We were itching for a night of adventure, and with strict parents imposing curfews, we hatched a plan to tell our folks we were crashing at each other's places. The goal was clear, a night of absolute freedom, no curfew, and no worries. Our journey began with aimless drives around our local area. We grabbed some food, cruised around, and soaked in the freedom of being young, wild, and unburdened. The night stretched longer than we expected, and as the clock neared 2 in the morning, we decided to spice things up by driving to a neighboring state's tourist hotspot, a good 45-minute journey from our starting point. As we cruised down an unlit street, surrounded by darkness save for the glow of distant houses, a chill ran down my spine. A car pulled out from a parking space behind us, no lights on, gradually closing the gap between our bumpers. Mike and Chris were just as bewildered as I was, and we exchanged nervous glances, speculating on what was unfolding. To our naive surprise, when I checked the rearview mirror, I discovered not one but 2 vehicles tailing us, one behind the other. Panic set in as the car behind us started flickering its lights on and off, attempting to bump us a few times. Instinct kicked in, and I decided to gun it, blowing through stop signs and red lights, desperate to shake off our pursuers. We found ourselves on a main highway, the 2 menacing vehicles still hot on our tail. The situation escalated when one car pulled up alongside us, and in that surreal moment, the driver and I locked eyes. He had a disturbing smile on his face that sent shivers down my spine. Meanwhile, the other car continued its relentless pursuit from behind, pushing us to speeds of nearly 100 miles per hour. Fueled by adrenaline and fear, I floored the gas pedal, hitting close to 110 miles per hour in a zone where the speed limit was nearly half that. Miraculously, we managed to gain a few car lengths on our pursuers. Just as we thought we might escape, we passed 2 police cars side by side. Relief washed over me as one of the patrol cars immediately pulled out with its lights flashing. It was the first time in my life I welcomed being pulled over. Looking back, the 2 vehicles that had been tailing us seemed to vanish into thin air. The officer approached my window, ready to reprimand us for breaking curfew, but before he could speak, one of the menacing cars sped past us. Panicking, I urgently informed the officer, who radioed another patrol car that successfully pulled the carjackers over further down the road. It turned out these guys were known troublemakers in the area, and we had narrowly escaped a potentially dangerous situation. The officer issued me a speeding ticket but acknowledged that, in the end, it was a small price to pay for keeping our safety and preventing our car from being stolen. I'm 21, residing in a quaint suburban setting, which tends to make weekends rather quiet. Occasionally, I'll make the 35-minute drive to the nearby city to catch up with a couple of friends. Last weekend was one of those outings. I left around 7 p.m., and we hung out until the clock struck midnight. Now, I'm not exactly a night owl, so by that time, exhaustion had started to settle in, and all I could think about was crawling into bed. As I hit the highway, doing my best to stave off the drowsiness, something surreal unfolded. About 5 minutes into my drive home, a man suddenly emerged in the middle of the road. I was cruising at 70 miles an hour, and this guy is frantically waving his arms, seemingly oblivious to the speeding vehicles around him. I managed to slam on the brakes just in time, pulling over to the shoulder of the road to avoid hitting him. Irritated, I laid on the horn, not yet grasping the peculiarity of the situation. It wasn't until the guy locked eyes with me and started walking toward my car that a chill ran down my spine. He appeared to be in his early 30s, drenched in sweat, and utterly panicked. When I rolled down my window, he wasted no time pleading for a ride home. It was strange, but exhaustion clouded my judgment, and I was ready to chalk it up to a bizarre encounter until he tried to open my locked passenger side door. That's when I snapped back to reality. I probed, asking where he was going or coming from. In response, He promised to spill the beans on everything if I let him in the car. Alarm bells rang, and for my own safety, I decided against it. Instead, I asked if there was someone I could call for him, and that's when things took a turn for the worse. The guy started crying and pounding on my car in frustration. I sped away, glancing in the rearview mirror to see him attempting to chase me. It was a relief when he faded into the distance. 5 minutes later, I called 911 to report the bizarre incident, providing a description of the man and detailing his erratic behavior. The next morning, I followed up with the police, and it turned out the guy had been found again, running in the middle of the road. The shock came when I learned he was responsible for an armed robbery at a gas station just 30 minutes before our encounter. Reflecting on the incident, I couldn't help but wonder what his intentions were if I had let him into my car, especially knowing he was armed. It was a chilling reminder of the unpredictable and sometimes perilous nature of late-night encounters, and I can't shake the feeling of narrowly avoiding something much more dangerous.